Okay, welcome everyone. Like I said, my name is Will Moss. I'm the CEO of HBCU Connect, and this evening we are presenting Johnson & Johnson and their opportunities for engineering and tech professionals. So super excited to have you all, and thank you all for taking the time out to join us. And thanks to the J&J team as well for taking the time out to share your experiences and the opportunities available on the teams that you represent. So what I like to do when we do these virtual recruiting events is I like to kind of set the stage for what's going to happen in this evening's event so that everybody is aware of the run of show and when you can jump in to participate and those types of things. So first of all, I'm going to give a quick welcome from myself to talk a little bit about who I am, who is HBCU Connect, our partnership with Johnson & Johnson, and the opportunity for you this evening to learn more and to maximize on your chance to potentially interview and be hired. Then I'm going to introduce the Johnson & Johnson team, where you'll learn a little bit more about not only the company and what it's like to work for the company, but also to the Robotics and Digital Solutions team and what they do and the types of opportunities that they have available. So then I'll introduce each team member, and then we will jump into a panel discussion once you have an idea on context of who those team members are, what they do. And then let's dig into what it's like to work at J&J, the company culture, and getting to know each of these panelists that have taken the time out to share their experiences. Then you'll have the opportunity to actually ask questions live. So I'll start out with questions that come in from the chat while I'm hosting the panel discussion. If you have questions that you'd like to ask, go ahead and drop those questions in the chat. And then I'll pull from some of those questions to ask the team. And then if we have time, of course, I'd like to invite you to leverage your audio and video to ask questions live to the panelists, and we'll use the reaction feature, like I said, in Zoom. Then I'll pass it back over to Brian with J&J to talk about next steps for you all as candidates. So that will be the run of show for this evening. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I wanted to briefly welcome everyone and let you guys know if this is your first time attending an HBCU Connect event, you might be wondering, who am I? Who is HBCU Connect? Other than the messages you might have received to be invited to this event. But HBCU Connect is the largest organization for students and graduates from historically Black colleges and universities. We've expanded since starting in 1999 to focus on a larger audience of African-American professionals. And as we started to work with more and more companies, those companies have requested our help to not only focus on African-American professionals, but also Latinx professionals, and to invite them to our events and to share the opportunities that they have available within their companies. So now we are a company that really is a connection point from corporate opportunities, not only jobs and internships, but also if you're a current student, you might be interested in internships or jobs after graduation. But we like to be a connection from diverse students or professionals with opportunities. And that brings us to the opportunity this evening with Johnson & Johnson. As a great company, a very well recognized brand, but they're also a large company, and they have more opportunities than you might think of when you think of Johnson & Johnson. A lot of people think automatically pharmaceutical sales, right? If you go to events and you see Johnson & Johnson, they have a huge booth and they're recruiting pharmaceutical sales professionals. But the opportunity for you this evening is with a different team where they are hiring engineering and tech professionals, and you're going to learn about those opportunities this evening. So we have a new partnership with Johnson & Johnson, just recently launched thanks to one of my team members, LJ, Larry Jameson on my team, who's forged a relationship with Johnson & Johnson. And one of the things we like to do is say, hey, where are the opportunities within the company? And especially where are opportunities where we can present those opportunities to diverse professionals. And one opportunity that showed up was within the Robotics and Digital Solutions organization. So that brings us to our event tonight. And the opportunity for you is not only to learn more about Johnson & Johnson and this particular team, but also to ask questions, to see yourself potentially in a position that some of the folks that are represented from J&J, to see yourself maybe in their shoes so that you can ask questions on what it's like, in particular roles, how your skills may translate, and then of course, the opportunity to potentially land an interview and be hired. Because when we do these events, these are focused and targeted events. And what we want to happen is that you guys engage and then potentially land an interview and be hired. And that has happened at plenty of our events in the past. So you are in a good place. All right. So I'm going to invite you all, as I introduce our first speaker from the J&J team, I'm going to also invite you all to really engage, leverage the chat. I see some people already dropping their LinkedIn profiles. Go ahead and drop your HBCU that you represent, where you're from, and your LinkedIn profile if you'd like to network in that fashion, but we invite you to do that. And again, no need to have your video on until we get to the live Q&A. But with that, let me go ahead and introduce Brian Fannis, who is the Global Practice Principal Recruiter, Robotics and Digital Solutions. So Brian, if you're ready.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. I've had the pleasure of actually leading the engineering team prior to my current role, which I just started about 2 weeks ago. I led the engineering team for North America. I've had 9 years, almost 10 after the turn of this year at Johnson & Johnson. I started my career in the staffing world. Johnson & Johnson ended up being one of my clients. I ended up joining them as a full-time member. I've spent most of my time in 2 of the 3 main sectors of Johnson & Johnson. So just so you know, J&J consists of 3 main sectors. That is our consumer products business, which is most of the products that you will see in your medicine cabinet, at home. Our pharmaceutical business, which is actually our largest business, mostly led under the name of Janssen Pharmaceuticals. And then our medical device business, which is now starting to take shape. From medical device, a lot of the classic surgery tools that you never get to hear about, a lot of orthopedic implants such as knee replacements, hip, shoulders, those types of things, to what is now going to be the next iteration of J&J and medical device, which we're calling medical technology. And that's where our robotics and digital solutions kind of evolution started just about 3 years ago here at J&J. So I've had the pleasure of, meeting and speaking with, thousands of people during my tenure here. I have a team of about 14 total recruiters that used to report to me on the engineering side. I am now more specialized in being that global practice principal recruiter. So all I will do is recruit talent within the robotics and digital solution space. And I've turned over the rest of engineering for J&J to some of my peers. So love to talk to you a little bit more about exactly why we're here. And thanks for teeing it up, Will, which is our robotics and digital solutions business. So about 3 years ago, J&J saw the future of healthcare and where it was going. We are the largest healthcare company in the world, employ over 130,000 people globally. We've been around for 130 years, but you don't survive as a company for 130 years without a true investment in innovation, technology, and research and development. So if you take a look at the next slide there, Will, we started about 3 years ago. We had some partnerships as well as some acquisitions in this space, knowing that the future of medical technology and medical device and surgery was going to be digital. Some of these companies are more aligned to AI, machine learning. Some of them we've acquired for their surgical robotics platforms, some of them for the software and data tracking that comes along with it. So some of the names you see up there are still commonly used, but they all encompass part of our robotics and digital solutions platform at this point. If you go to the next slide, really Johnson & Johnson's vision in this space is to shape a future where medical intervention is smarter, less invasive, and more personalized, right? So if surgeons have that opportunity to look inside the body without cutting you open, that's the cutting edge technology that we're talking about, the ability to treat patients faster and on a lot of different platforms as well. If you take a look at the next slide, it actually shows kind of what encompasses what we call that digital surgery or digital robotics and digital solutions ecosystem. So it's not only the next generation robotics, which are a huge part of it, but it's really what, which you've seen the names of Auris and Verb on the previous slides, a lot of that acquired talent, which you'll hear some from our panelists in there. And then the best-in-class instrumentation, which our Ethicon surgery business has really been at the forefront of for decades. And then again, some of the newer iterations in healthcare, right? Advanced imaging and visualization inside the patient. And then again, some of that artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the data analytics. So as these robots and these surgeons are performing these procedures on every patient, that data is being collected. How can we be more streamlined, more careful with the patient, and have better outcomes for all of them? And then the digital solutions is really kind of, again, that whole ecosystem behind it, tracking it and grabbing everything. So I know that is a quick summary of, again, a long journey. And again, some of the panelists you'll hear from have been dedicating their careers to this, not just the 3 years that J&J has been at this. But hopefully this is something that is exciting to you, that you see the need for people with engineering backgrounds and diverse experience, really to continue to push this platform forward for Johnson & Johnson and really for patients worldwide.
Excellent, excellent. Brian, let me thank you for taking the time out to give us that high-level overview before we kind of dive into the different panelists and their backgrounds and what they do at J&J. I think it's great for our candidates to also understand the bigger picture and how robotics and digital solutions fits into that bigger picture. So what my only request will be, there may be some HR-related questions or recruitment-related questions during our panel discussion, but then also to our candidates, if you'd like to engage with Brian now that you know who he is, feel free to drop those questions and comments in the chat. And then Brian, I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat for any questions you might be able to answer. Okay, excellent. So thanks. That was Brian Fannis, Global Practice Principal Recruiter with Robotics and Digital Solutions. And now what I would like to do is go ahead and introduce each of our panelists to give you guys a little bit of background information and context, so that when we get into the live Q&A and the panel discussion, you'll know who to direct your questions to. You may have an interest in their background and what they do, or maybe what their teams do, and then you'll know who they are so that you can ask some great questions during our live Q&A. So our first panelist that I'd like to introduce is Jessica Fontanes, PMP and Director of Supply Chain Integration there at J&J. So Jessica, if you're ready.
Hi, thank you, Will and Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Jessica Fontanes. I've been with J&J about 10 years now. Before I worked with Stryker 7 years, so about 17 years now in the medical device industry. So as Will was mentioning before, most of the people think about J&J on the pharmaceutical sector. There is another sector, which is medical device, and where the robotic and digital business solutions falls into. So very happy with the 10 years that I've been working with J&J. Numerous of opportunities that I've had in my career within those 10 years. I've had new product introduction, engineering management, process excellence roles as well, and product management, which is setting up end-to-end supply chain for new product introductions as well. So many opportunities, and I'm very glad to be here and support and provide as much information as we can.
So let me follow up with a question I like to ask, and that is, how did you get your foot in the door at J&J in the first place?
Yeah, it's very interesting question. So two reasons, two buckets of that question, personal and professional reasons, right? So on the personal side, I was giving birth to my first child, and I was approached by a recruiter, and it kind of like cut the commute in half. So that was important for me at that time. And eventually I found that J&J support a lot the work-life balance. So that was very important for me. And then on the professional side, it was a very interesting role that I was approached to take on and be interested in. In addition, that it was a healthcare company, when I dig a little bit more into what J&J was and the culture, it was very credo-based, which probably we can talk a little bit more about it. That was very important to me, the values that the company had and how it served the patients, which is one of the first responsibilities on the credo. So I jumped into the opportunity. I didn't say no. I went for it, and I wouldn't regret. It's been an amazing journey.
So I noticed in your background, you have an undergrad in mechanical engineering.
Yes.
And then your master's in engineering management. How has your background as a mechanical engineer helped in what you have done at J&J since you started your career there?
Yeah, good question there. So I had the opportunity to execute my mechanical engineering skills that I got through the bachelor and also on the master degree, the engineering management. So I was able to spend few years on the technical aspect of engineering, gaining a lot of technical knowledge and skills to then eventually be able to lead teams that were very technical. So that helped me a lot in kind of like gaining that technical knowledge in the industry more than being in college, and being able to lead the team towards that.
So got another good question for you, and that's around, what is it what team are you on? So I know you're director of supply chain integration. So for someone that's outside of J&J, and if you wanted to explain sort of, how you fit into your team and how your team fits into the company and essentially what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. And one thing interesting for the audience here is how engineering fits into supply chain, right? So in J&J, you can see that it's R&D, research and development, supply chain, and the commercial team. And mostly on the R&D and supply chain are where most of the engineers falls into. So on the R&D side, it's very technical because there is a lot of innovation, developing product. On the supply chain, it's a lot of manufacturing engineering and processes development. So my role right now, I oversee the end-to-end supply chain. And within that team, there are a group of engineers that I lead. So we make sure that the product that we designed and that now is safe and effective for the patients, we can manufacture that product and provide it to the customer. So we're responsible to manufacture that product, get it through the supply, and put it in the hands of the patients.
And are the products actually pharmaceutical products, or are they actually technologies that are used in the industry?
So right now, the one that I'm overseeing is robotics.
Okay.
So our capital equipment that we will put in the hospitals to do bronchoscope surgeries.
Yep.
So we have capital equipment and also consumables. So that's the specific portfolio that I'm working and leading right now. Before I was working with the wound closure, which are needles and sutures that eventually you see on the hospitals.
And what does your team look like? Your team is composed of what type of professionals?
I have a variety of people there. So I have engineers, very technical. I have others that are more on the soft side of the skills. So then the current role is integrating all those acquisitions that we have done that Brian just explained. We are integrating their supply chain into the J&J operating model. So we are making sure that they are going to be operating in the J&J model. And I'm also doing an interim role, which is planning. And that team specifically takes the commercial input on how many sales we're going to have in the future, and us make sure that we will be able to meet that forecast to provide it and have it available at the time that it will be consumed.
Awesome. So I see one question that came in from James Davis in the chat, specifically for you, and it's around what are some of the biggest challenges facing end-to-end supply chain for J&J?
Yeah, that's a good question. Specifically for this robotic and digital solution business, it's been the scalability. It's the future of the surgery. So there is a lot of interest on the market to have this product in their facilities, in the hospital, the customer sites. So there is more demand at this time to what we can produce. So the biggest challenge is making sure that we are having an installed capacity to have the product available for everyone at the time that they want it. So it's a good problem to have, but it's something that we are continuously working on to make sure that we can scale up and we can serve all those patients that are looking to have this product.
Awesome. So Jessica, let me thank you for participating in our event this evening and being a part of our panel discussion. So to our candidates, if you have specific questions for Jessica, feel free to drop those in the chat. And Jessica, I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat for any questions that you might be able to answer. But with that, let me introduce our next panelist, and then we'll bring Jessica back for our panel discussion. Thanks, Jessica. All right, so our next panelist is Ryan Murphy, Director of Software on the OTTAVA platform, or OTTAVA platform. So Ryan, if you're ready.
Sure, thanks, Will. Happy to be here, excited to be talking with all of you. I guess first, maybe I'll talk about how I got into J&J, how I got here. It's an interesting story. I was part of an acquisition. So Brian mentioned there were several acquisitions that really supported this group, and I was part of one of those acquisitions. And that company that I was part of was Auris. So how did I get there? Well, I really grew up in the robotics space in an academic and professional sense, starting with my bachelor's degrees. Post that, I started doing a whole lot of research in computer-assisted surgery. And here at J&J, I'm working very much on surgical robotics. So for those of you that haven't heard of OTTAVA, probably many people haven't, it's still very under the covers. It's a next generation surgical robot, and I'll pretty much leave it at that. But so I started really working in robotics as working on computer-assisted surgeries during my master's research. And from there, I moved on focusing in surgical robotics as a particular specialty across the realm from face transplant research. So yes, actually taking off someone's face and putting it on someone else. So if you're interested to hear about that, come and chat with me, as well as a whole bunch of different surgeries on hips. And so moving on from there, I spent a good bit of time in an academic research environment at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. While I was there, I did a lot of research still in computer-assisted surgery, but then I also spent quite a bit of time in the defense sector, doing very much research and prototype work. So if you've heard of the RoboSally from the Applied Physics Lab, and there are a few other relatively similar robots coming out of APL, I've been a part of some of those. And from there, I was recruited to join Auris. And when I joined Auris, working on a platform similar to OTTAVA, I was really focused technically as a software developer on the robotics side. And so what that means is thinking about things like algorithms and controls, and then putting those into place and making them actually work and function on the system. I moved up through the management chain, and as we were acquired acquired by J&J, my role changed slightly, and I inherited this role in January of this year. And right now I'm the director of software for OTTAVA, and that encompasses a whole lot of different stuff. So full stack software, anybody who's interested in that, come and chat with me. It also includes things like cyber. So running these medical devices, cyber is a really important part of what we need to do, and we're working to understand and to implement all those particular details, as well as things like DevOps, how we have our continuous integration and continuous development environment. Software test, we got to test the system to make sure everything's working and working well. And that's just a smattering of some of the areas where my focus. Another big area is really firmware driver development type efforts. Another area that's near and dear to my heart is the robotics side, and I can also speak to really anything about that on the algorithms, modeling, controls. Again, I sort of grew up in that world. That is not under my purview, but rather I work with a colleague, Haran, and his focus very much is all of those algorithms and models, and I'm happy to talk through any of that as well.
Awesome. So quick question, how large is your team, and what types, like what is the makeup of your team?
Yeah, so my team, there's about 65 people reporting to me right now. There's a couple different hierarchies in there, but there's about 65 developers on the software team. Most of the folks are coming with generally a computer science background. If you notice, I actually have a computer science as my bachelor's, and all of my other degrees are not there. That's okay. There are a number of folks on the team who have sort of this alternative pathway as well. There are lots of different ways to learn how to write software, and they don't all mean getting high degrees in computer science or even a degree in computer science. There are lots of ways to get there. And then I do have a subset of my team that's really focused more on the computer engineering, electrical engineering side. And so some of the firmware folks are coming from that route. And then when you look at the robotics controls team, they're about 50 people right now. Again, they're not under me, but they're a very close organization that we work with on Otava software. And they're a mix, a smattering of different backgrounds. You have mechanical engineers, you have computer science folks, you have computer and electrical engineers, and then you have other random folks coming into it. But basically, anyone that has a lot of focus on the algorithms and modeling side of robotics has more roles in that team than they would in my team.
So you touched on your degrees, and as you were starting to talk, I was looking at your background educationally. What kind of guided you? Because I think some candidates will probably relate to your background, but what guided your choices in from computer science to aerospace to biomedical areas and then mechanical?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my first love, if you will, was really space, right? And so that's where you get into aerospace engineering. I was all about the spacecraft and space flight. That's what I focused on as part of aerospace. And then I also had an interest on the software development side. I had not done any software development aside from my senior year in high school, and then that was pretty interesting to me, and so I decided to tack that on as well. As I was looking at graduate school, because I didn't know what I wanted to do after I finished my bachelor's degree, which I don't think is super uncommon, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I looked at a bunch of different programs, and biomedical engineering, it was more a means to an end than the degree itself. It was an area that I was interested in. I knew I wanted to move towards healthcare. I knew that was important to me as an individual to focus on, but that particular program gave me a lot of flexibility to explore various areas around healthcare, robotics, biomechanics, fluid mechanics for how blood moves through your body, things like that. And then I was actually working full-time while I did my PhD, and mechanical engineering was a means to an end. The faculty that I work with was also someone I work closely with at my employer, JHU-APL. And so from there, it was an easy mechanism to move through that program and explore the areas that I wanted to explore.
Awesome. So sort of a deep dive question, or semi deep dive question. So I have a background in software engineering myself.
Okay,
so
great.
I'm a programmer by trade, and notice you're the director of software. So for those software folks or software engineers that are with us this evening, what types of technologies or programming languages are you all using to develop your products?
Yeah, great question. I think, as everybody knows, there's a whole set of programming languages out there, right? We have two main languages that we use on robot. And what I mean by that is actually to make the device move. So C++ is really the basic language that we use across everything. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I'm not going to spend time going into the details and bore the people that don't really care. But C++ is really the main language here. And then we use Python quite a bit as well. And Python lets us really do really interesting things with the robot that we might not want to do in a surgical scenario, right? So you can imagine, hey, I'm a mechanical engineer and I want to write a script to just do some lifecycle testing. You can use our Python interface to enable that. So C++ for high-level software, Python for sort of interfacing with that, and then low-level, it's a mix of different things at the firmware level.
Awesome. And then what is it for you personally? And I forgot to ask this question to Jessica, but we'll probably have to loop back. But what is it for you personally that you like most now that you've joined Johnson & Johnson?
Sure. So honestly, there's a lot of things that I like about working at J&J. The thing that really keeps me here is this particular product. I wish I could share with you guys videos and pictures and clips of some of the amazing stuff that we're doing. It's really exciting, and it keeps me interested, keeps me entertained, and I think there's lots of promise for this looking ahead. So that's what keeps me here right now.
Awesome. So Ryan, let me thank you for being one of our panelists. To our candidates, if you have any questions specifically for Ryan, drop those questions in the chat, and then Ryan, I'll ask you to keep an eye on the chat for any questions you might be able to answer in the meantime. All right.
Happy to do so. Thanks, Will.
Yes, sir. So we'll bring Ryan back during our panel discussion. But next, let me introduce Alan. Alan Yu, who's Director of System Hardware, Auris Health. So Alan, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Will. Nice to meet everyone here. Again, my name's Alan. I'm actually also with Auris Health as well, purchased by J&J recently in the last 2 years. So what's system hardware? So under me, we have mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and engineering services. Engineering services is like CAD, PLM administration, managing the machine shop, and the 3D printing labs. So basically, everything hardware related. I focus on the Monarch team. So if you Google Monarch, you will actually see our flexible robotics system that's commercially available. Currently, right now, the whole staff is mainly supported the commercial release. It's taking quite some time to get there, but we're pretty proud at this point. We've sold over 100 systems in the last, I don't know, 18 to 24 months, which is just mind-blowing in my previous experience for a surgical robotic platform. So very much in the commercialization phase, a lot of people with backgrounds in quality and verification, testing to do the job. Okay, so this applies to the mechanical and electrical engineers as well. Obviously, prior to that, the team was a little bit different in the earlier days. I joined Auris Health back in 2013. I was employee number 12, so I've seen it all pretty much. Very much research focused. And during that time, I mean, the joke was if there was a hole in the body, we stuck something in there, okay? Don't take that out of context. But what it did was it created a lot of IP, intellectual property for the future, and really created a large roadmap, which became very attractive, obviously, to Johnson & Johnson. It spawned off the side that Ryan Murphy, is working for, the side I'm working for, and other things to come in the future as well. So back in the days, different types of engineering type of backgrounds, right? Early days Auris was very much research, creative individuals, people that could really work without a lot of direction, clean sheet of paper, that kind of thought process, right? At some point, we did have to build something. We took it to clinical trials, but it was really more for just proof of concept. At some point, when we got to like the commercialization phase, it was a whole switch over of our quality system and the type of people we were hiring at that point. People who were more well-rounded, cross-functionally, of course. Again, very much familiar with like procedures, work instructions, and quality, and so forth, right? So large evolution from beginning to end. I would say right now, what's interesting is, yes, we have the commercial people, and that's very much the largest part of the organization. But moving forward, we're looking at next generation, right? So that's part of what I'm trying to build up again, something to shoot for, I don't know, 6-7 years from now, right? Because like when you look at your Honda Accord, every 7-8 years, they're doing a refresh of some sort just in the automotive side. We're planning to do the same thing here as well, right? So we're looking for all types of people that have that, process, commercial type of quality background, and people that are more out of box thinking going forward. Okay, so that's kind of like what we're doing here. How did this all start for me? So I'm a local guy, born and raised in the Bay Area, never left. I took advantage of every ounce of what the Bay Area gave me. I mean, clearly from the great weather to all the technology and the connections and the resources with everything. I went to San Jose State, graduated in the 90s, mid 90s. I was focused on mechanical engineering. And at the time, there was a brand new program starting to develop called mechatronics. It was still kind of the beginnings and origins of like robotics in the early 90s. And so I jumped all over that. It was super appealing. Focused a lot in semiconductor type of work and development. So I did that probably my first 8 years or so. And my heart really lies in that space. But a lot of the work I had done back then was as an individual contributor. I really honed in on my skill sets as a mechanical engineer. A lot of our projects went directly into Intel, worked with Applied Materials, all the front-end automation stuff that you see, videos of factories in the past in semiconductors. Eventually in 2004, I got recruited by Fred Moll and his staff into Hanson Medical. And so Hanson was, they were the pioneers of flexible robotics, kind of the origins of the Monarch system. And if you don't know Fred's background, he came from, he started Intuitive Surgical, one of many famous companies. And then eventually he started a company called Hanson Medical. And so I was recruited from my space in semiconductors because I had that automation background and pulling it into surgery. Back in 2004, there was no surgical robotics per se. That just didn't exist, right? It was more research and stuff. So I was with Hansen for, from 2013 to from 2004 to 2013. And I focused a lot as an individual contributor. And at the end of my tenure there, not that I was looking for it, but the VP at the time says, Alan, I really want to consider you for leadership. You bring a lot of values that it'd be nice to grow teams off of. It's not something I was ever looking for. I always thought I was just going to be the quiet engineer in the background, but it's opened up a lot of opportunities for me, and it's helped me grow tremendously as a person. It's been fantastic. I'm very happy for that individual in the past who directed me on this path in life. And so when I was hired on into Auris in 2013, I came in as a manager, and I kind of grew from there. So since then, it's been a fantastic ride. It's a lot of chapters from the beginnings of Auris to Johnson & Johnson now. And every chapter has just amazing things to say of growth opportunities throughout. So
I'm seeing a common denominator from, at least from an educational background perspective in the mechanical engineering. So I have just a curiosity question going back to when you were in college. What made you choose to go into mechanical engineering?
That's a good question. So when I was very young, my father, being who he was, he had a background in civil engineering. He goes, son, you must go into electrical. It's the future. I'm like, I really don't care about electronics, Dad. And he goes, well, you know, he knew I liked building things when I was young. I built RC cars, loved Legos, don't we all, right? All that kind of stuff. And I spoke to some people, and they actually put me on that path of mechanical engineering. They said, hey, with mechanical, it's what they called the queen, is it the mother of engineering? The father, I believe, is civil engineering. At least back in the days we said that. But there were just so many directions you can go. And so I thought I was just going to do basic, work for the city. I don't know, something like that, working on lampposts, whatever.
Right.
But I went to one of the earlier recruiting sessions as a senior in high school, and I saw just all these cool robots on display at San Jose State, and I was just blown away. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was just all in at that point.
And so you also were a part of an acquisition when joining J&J, or you were recruited into J&J?
No. So I was part of the acquisition.
And so what has it been like transitioning to J&J, and what are some of the things that you like so far about working at the company?
Definitely the credo. I'll say that first and foremost. The leadership and the people that we're screened based on the credo to bring in. That's what it's all about for me. It's working with the people. The product is secondary. That's for me as a process. It just happens to be a really cool product, but it's all about the people. I'd say very consistent in terms of the value system and the leadership imperatives that we follow at Johnson & Johnson.
And so let me ask a basic question about your current role and responsibilities. What is a day in the life like for you personally at work? I'm sorry.
Okay, I think it's tough on directors, right? A lot of things going on. So supporting all commercial functions, and then trying to recruit at the same time. Dealing with in some cases attrition, but also trying to build teams going forward as well. We're trying to look forward, at least 2 years, at the director level, right? Trying to figure out what that team's going to look like. And our path just keeps changing and changing along the ways, you know what I mean? So it's challenging, it's complex, work with a lot of people cross-functionally, at least in J&J. It's a company that connects, if anything. You're learning that really quick when you're here. So it's always just meeting different people, a lot of 30-minute quick meetings every day. But then we have our standing meetings that, happen in the morning and the midday as well. So a lot of variation.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick off our panel discussion with my first question, actually for you, Alan. And as we do that, I'm going to ask Ryan and Jessica to get ready as well, because I'd be curious with the same question for each of you. And that question is, what are some of the skills and things you look for in candidates that you're looking to hire right now for your teams? And then what is the interview process like for candidates? So we'll start with Alan with that question.
Okay, sure. So as I mentioned before, we're looking for a lot of diversity of positions right now. I think currently I have 10 open positions still, and next year it's probably going to go up to about 25 or so. But a mix of skill sets. So first of all, under mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and then I mentioned the engineering services. So a lot of it is under commercialization. So people who have worked like with sustaining or under an installed base, those are key buckets. People have worked in process, who have released a product or have done like what we call a change order. In other words, like when you design something, you have to get it into our quality system. People who have done testing, strength and testing, verification, report writing. Those kind of technical skills are very important. And that gets layered on with your background in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering as well. Okay. And then at the same time, we're trying to build a new team for next generation. And those are guys that are very research focused, that can work off of a clean sheet of paper. We're not going to ask those guys to focus on the quality system. It's really just about research and development for the future.
And then what is the interview process like for candidates to come in to potentially join your team?
Sure. So first of all, it starts with a screening with our credo. So I love that. It's right up front. You know, it's trying to pick well-rounded individuals who have certain leadership imperatives. So that happens with our recruiter. Every director and VP has different recruiters we work off of, but the screening happens there first. And then the next line is based on the people that they find. Typically, they'll send us a bunch of resumes to the hiring manager, and we kind of sort through and look at the skill sets that we prefer. From there, what I usually do, I'll have a quick 30-minute to 60-minute just background check just to talk with them. And then if that's something we want to proceed with, then we set up formal interviews. And so typically under my organization, what we do for formal interviews is we try and keep it within a day, something that can fit in our Zoom world. Okay, it should be like no more than 5 hours or so. But it starts with, for us, it's a 1-hour presentation. And the presentation generally is, we're looking for fit. And what we're asking for you to do is present on like something from the past. We just want you to do like a design review, whether it's relevant or not, but it's more about you presenting something from the past and us having interactions back with you and just seeing how you respond to that. Okay, and that happens for about an hour. And then after that, it's just you're meeting with certain key individuals within the group. And that's it. It's fairly short.
Awesome. Let me pose the same question to Jessica and then Ryan. So Jessica, teams or things that you're looking for, talents or skill sets, types of individuals that your teams are looking to hire right now?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of skills, you know, most of us that are here, we're all engineers and we have those technical skills already coming from college, kind of like going through it. We put a lot of emphasis on the how and the what. So you may start hearing that J&J do a lot of emphasis on the what and the how. The what is the results that you provide, very measurable results, but then the how is how you get there. So in my team and within supply chain, and also probably for Alan and Ryan, it's the same. It's like we ask for a lot of skills on how you get to certain results, how you work with different team members from different backgrounds, from different skill sets. So we know that you have the skills to work with different people and achieve results that the company is looking for, but also because we want to serve the patient. So that's probably how I will frame it. It's just also looking for that how, and sometimes those soft skills that will lead you to get to some results, and you're bringing your team with you. And again, I'm saying on the engineering side, you all get that technical knowledge already. So it's how to apply it.
Awesome. And let me pose the same question to Ryan. The types of candidates that you're looking for, and what the interview process is like, maybe on the software side.
Yeah, so we look for obviously software engineers, right? That's what we're trying to support here. There's a whole bunch of different things that we look for depending on what roles we have open. So software, it's not just a single thing. There's a whole lot of different pieces to it. We have areas in test, we have areas in firmware, we have areas in UI development. Not all of those necessarily require the same skill set. And depending on the level of the role, we're looking for different things as well, right? So maybe at a more junior level, for someone who's coming out of school or out of school for a few years, we're looking for someone who's actually smart and interested and excited, and interest and excitement go a long, long way in my experience and in my hiring positions. People are interested and excited about the work and about the role, and they can talk to you about what they've done. That's a huge, huge help, right? And then obviously there is a technical component as well. I don't want to overlook that, and that's important for our process. And I think from the interview process perspective, it's very much what Alan described. The difference on the software side is prior to having that formal panel interview where you're coming on site in this virtual Zoom world and you have, back-to-back interviews with multiple different individuals, we actually have a technical screen that we do on the software side. And this is really just a first check of your ability to come in and code in C++ or in Python, whatever the role happens to be. It's not exhaustive by any means, and it's not intended to be exhaustive, but it's just a live skills assessment. And we have a few different criteria that we look for. How proficient are you at doing the code? What is your approach? So it's not necessarily about getting to the solution, and I want to make sure to emphasize that, but rather, how do you approach a problem? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about corner cases and edge cases? And there's a lot of these details that we look for as well. So hopefully that helps give some insight, but happy to talk more about it.
Definitely, definitely. So let me jump over into, so we've talked a little bit about, what it's like to interview, a little bit about the types of roles that are available and the type of people that you all look for. So let me pose some questions about the company culture at J&J. So I'll pose this first question to Jessica, but would love to have Alan and Brian chime in, as well as maybe Jason or Brian as well. So this question is about, like I said, a cultural question. So Jessica, do you feel that you can be yourself culturally speaking, working for J&J?
Certainly, I'll say yes, 200%. I mean, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, born and raised. So I'm a very diverse talent within the company. I've always, since day one, I felt that I was able to be myself. And not only that, so when I was working in Puerto Rico, because that's where I started, so we were all about the same culture. So over there, we were all about, same interests and culture. When I moved into the US, that's probably where you start noticing more of that diversity and that how will I fit, right? But it was, I always felt the same way, kind of like being myself. And not only that, the people were very, very interested in knowing kind of like my cultural background and how will that play into my day-to-day behaviors and leadership skills. And not only happened in US, I had the opportunity also to work with people in EMEA and China with a special project that I worked in surgical vision. And I also feel the same way. We all in J&J understand that we have a very diverse culture. We're a global company. So when you start having those opportunities to interact with different people, backgrounds, and different businesses across the world, is that you start seeing, you can truly be yourself in your day-to-day job. And you see yourself growing within the company, even when you're a diverse person or a minority.
Awesome. So let me introduce Jason briefly. So Jason, I know you didn't want to take over the show or anything, but
yeah.
I think just having some perspectives of different people that work at J&J are here. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and what you do there at J&J.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Jason DeShields. So I've been at J&J now for a little over 9 years. Funny story, Brian, who you met earlier, was actually the guy that referred me in. So I've been, we worked the whole company together now. We're over here at J&J. But I started off as a recruiter, a senior recruiting specialist, before moving into a role earlier this year on our diversity engagement and delivery team. With that, I am the liaison with HBCU Connect and Johnson & Johnson. So here to be a fly on the wall for these events and make sure everything goes smoothly. But then just recently promoted into a new role in our executive search team. So yes, can I be myself here at J&J? Absolutely. My now former boss is actually on this call, and she'll speak to that very clearly. So it's just a great place to work. It's given at least me a lot of opportunity to grow here. This is very much a place where they just care about the work that you're putting down, but you can definitely be yourself. And just it's like I said, just give me a lot of opportunity to kind of grow within the company. I can't express how much help folks will give you here if you ask for it and if you want it. And the development here has been tremendous. So I wholeheartedly, I'm obviously biased when it comes to this company, but I wouldn't be here for 9 years and hopefully many more if I didn't believe in this company. So hope to have many of you join us.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for calling me out, Will.
And Will, if you don't mind, I'd love to touch on it, right? I've been recruiting here for almost 10 years. And, you know, I think like diversity, equity, and inclusion is a buzzword for some companies. I will say that J&J has lived it for decades, right? If you look at not only being 130 years old, but the credo is, again, that foundational value of what we do. And if you have a chance to read it, it talks about the communities that we live in. It talks about the patients, the mothers, the doctors. It is all encompassing of exactly what we need to be. And the people that sit within J&J should be reflective of all of those patients, those consumers, and the people that that we service, right? And J&J has been committed to that, stays committed to that. And again, I think I said it earlier, you don't thrive for 130 years and continue to push forward and being the largest healthcare company without that diverse and inclusive mindset as a foundational value. I've been to most sites here in the US, and there's one common thing, and it's the credo, and it's the family feel. Like when you come here, they say, welcome to the family, and it is truly, and people mean it. I know Jessica's, start in Puerto Rico, you come here, Ryan's moved around, we've acquired companies. I knew when we acquired ours, it would be a seamless transition because they were so focused on the people that were within that company and the outcomes for patients that they were focused on. So if we keep that as the North Star and the values, everything else takes care of itself.
Love it. Love it. So I like to, when we have these panel discussions, and this one's actually a little bit off script, but I like to talk about current events a little bit. So, and this is, I think, an important question from a candidate advocacy standpoint, because if a candidate comes to work at J&J right now, we're in the midst of a pandemic, right? So my question is a two-part question, and I'm going to open this up to anyone, or I can default it to the different teams that I'm somewhat curious about. But that is, how has COVID-19 changed the way that you work? And then how has it changed the way that you onboard new candidates? So I'll default this to Ryan, because I know.
Yeah, happy to start. So it's changed a ton. Before COVID-19 happened, speaking from personal experience, remote work it wasn't a thing that J&J even talked about, at least in my organization. Brian, Jason, maybe you guys know a little bit more broadly about that than I do, but in the Bay Area, it just wasn't a thing that we talked about or that we thought was possible. And so that's opening up now. So for me personally, I actually work remotely. The team that I manage is in the Bay Area, and I live in Colorado, and that's been made possible, I think, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in part because we are learning every day that, at least in the software organization, we have capacity and capability to be productive, to be effective in a remote style work environment. And J&J has sort of a flexible policy right now of 3 days on, 2 days off. We can do a few other things in that. But one of the things that I look for my team is being able to support when it makes sense that someone's working remote. Let's do it. It's okay. We can be successful in that environment. Obviously, Alan, your team focuses on hardware, and that maybe is a whole lot harder for your team, and I'll let you maybe speak to that. But from software, in some cases it makes sense, and we should embrace that and understand that we can have a much broader and much more talented candidate pool than what we simply get in the Bay Area. And I've hired people that were working remotely as well. So I think that's a huge advantage. And then from an onboarding perspective, yeah, it makes onboarding more challenging, right? We have to think through not only how do we get someone up and ready from a technical perspective, that's actually the easy part, right? The hard part is how do we make individuals feel like part of a team? How do we bridge those connections, Jessica, that you talked about? How do we make sure that you're feeling like you're part of the J&J family, you're part of the software family, part of the hardware family, whatever the case is, right? How do you feel like part of the team? And so we have initiatives in different organizations do it slightly differently, but there are things that we do to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and accepted in this new role and in this new world. It's exciting. I think there's lots of advantages to it, but there are definitely challenges that we have to work through and are figuring out every day.
Awesome. So Jessica or Alan, how has COVID-19 changed the way your teams have worked?
Yeah, and I can speak, it's very similar to what Ryan has explained. I also think, it's really hard to make that connection, those hallway conversations that you were having at the coffee table, at the lunch, and kind of like, it made it more informal, and in a way you were kind of like getting some work done through those informal conversations. Now, as Ryan was saying, we have put initiatives in place. We even have things that we do just for fun, like bingo, or like different like team building activities that we have started to do virtually, because that's something that we do want to maintain. We want to make sure that we continue that connection. And now that we are going back to the office, it's in a flexible environment, so we continue to have that face-to-face interaction, but also J&J is providing that flexible work right now, which also allow you to take care of your life, of your family, of yourself. So that always, it was a good change that we have had through the pandemic, that we were able to turn it into a very positive way.
Awesome. And I'm always curious for the hardware engineering, or more hands-on mechanical and those types of products. So Alan, how has COVID-19 changed the way your teams have been working?
It's changed drastically. It was really hard on the hardware team from the get-go, right? So what we did in the early days, we had like people that were dedicated with justification to be working in the office. But for some of the engineers that were not as hands-on, they worked remotely. So we started off in that manner. Similar to what Ryan and Jessica had said, a lot of similarities there. But if anything, I'd say, we really developed methods of, sorry, my dog is running around here, tools of communication is really the key thing, and using that technology to our advantage, and aligning across those communication technology tools is really important. So right now, we're at a point where we are back to our flex schedule, where we're asking people to at least come in on Mondays and Wednesdays just for team collaboration, just to be there, whether you have a meeting or not or whatever, but just to rebuild that team within what we call our neighborhood for system hardware. And then on the other days, it's up to you. If you need to come in to work on something, you could, but you don't necessarily have to. One of the other things we've done too was we assigned a couple of technicians when COVID started to always be on site full time. And so they were an extension of the engineer's hands at that point to help with the hardware. So creatively, we're able to do things like that.
Awesome. So we're right at the top of the hour, 7 p.m. So we've got about 25 minutes left. And what I would like to do, since we have so much time, is I like to allow our candidates, if you are ready for it, if you're in a quiet place and you're ready to utilize your video, you can go ahead and turn your video on. And then inside of Zoom, there's a reactions feature. And with the reactions, you can actually raise your hand. So if you look at the options here within Zoom, and then you'll see like a smiley face with a plus on it for reactions, and you can raise your hand. And like I said, you can turn on your video. And then once I am ready to take your question for the team, I can invite you to come off of mute. So as you guys get ready for that, if you'd like to turn, like I said, turn on your video, I'll ask one last question of my own to the panelists, and then I'll open it up for some Q&A, some live Q&A. So we should have some good discussions here. So my next question for the team is, what are some of the most exciting either aspects of your job or projects that are coming down the pipe that you're looking forward to working on? So I'll default this one to Jessica to start off with, and then Ryan and Alan, if you'd like to add one.
Yes. So as I was mentioning before, that one of the challenges that we have in the supply chain is that scalability and capacity to make sure that we can manufacture all these awesome robotic products that the market will like to have right away. One of the most excited project that I'm working right now is opening up a new facility here in the Bay Area, where we only have right now 2 manufacturing lines. We're going to be having about 6. It's just to make sure that we will be able to manufacture all the product that right now the market is asking us for. So going through that process of asking at the organization, hey, I need all this capital because we need to build up this new facility to scale up and have more capacity, and seeing the support from J&J, because this is the future of the surgery, and making it a reality and starting to install all those manufacturing lines, it's really exciting right now. So we're full speed ahead in implementing that project next year. So super happy to be working on that one.
Awesome. So Ryan, did you have any either exciting aspects of your current role or exciting projects coming down the pipe that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, so I have to be careful here with what I say, only because OTTAVA is still, like I said, under the radar for a lot of reasons. But for me, one of the most exciting things that we're doing right now, we just kicked off a major initiative across the entire program. So software, hardware, everybody working together to make the system that we have a bit more stable, to allow us to get better clinical feedback and clinical input. And while that may sound really bland to some of you on the call, there's a lot of moving pieces to it. It's a lot of challenges, particularly with the remote work environment. And really thinking about the end result of seeing this come to life in a much better state than we currently are holds a whole lot of promise for seeing what we'll be able to do in the future. Again, I can't say too much, and I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Awesome. Alan?
A lot of things. So just a couple weeks ago, long build up to our 510K release for our urology platform. So 510K is a predicate device submission to the FDA. So large submission package to take our Monarch system, which does bronchoscopy, and basically creating an indication for urology. So it's the true platform type thing. We just submitted that a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, just we're all kind of like, take the time, exhale. It's been really excruciating getting to that point, but very exciting. Now, coming up, the 2 main exciting things on the team is now driving towards a commercial release for the urology launch in the next year. In other words, having it available in the market. And then, as I mentioned before, is then in parallel, building up a team for next generation development and starting research for the next year, and then probably some simulation the year after that.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so let me, I'm going to open up the floor to some live Q&A. When we had our events previously, prior to COVID-19, this has actually changed the way we do business as well, of course. But we were doing these events in person all over the country. We would have candidates come out to the event, present the company, and meet the team. And then we would have a networking time period where US candidates could ask questions directly to some of the panelists and have some conversations that could lead to potential interview opportunities. So to our candidates, if you'd like to go ahead and turn on your video, make sure your video is working. then use the reaction feature to raise your hand. I'll try to pick up as many of you as I can to ask some questions to the team. So James was the first person that actually joined the call today super early. So James, I imagine you may be excited about asking your question. So I'm going to allow you to unmute and then go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Davis. I'm a mechanical engineer, graduated from Tuskegee University in 2019. First of all, I'd like to thank Will for creating this platform and this opportunity for everyone to interface. Thank you. My question is for Alan and Jessica. In what ways can a mechanical engineering candidate stand out in the interview process, and what skills does he need to have?
Great question.
That's a good question. So coming out of college, definitely projects and interaction. That's the key thing you want to highlight, right? So you, depending on what you're interested in, you got to highlight whether it's your skill set, your, I don't know, process understanding, or potentially leadership skills of different teams that you've developed. That'll definitely help stand out.
Okay, thank you. Also, this is one more culturally based, and this could be for everyone on the panel, but I'd say, what do you all love most about the culture of Johnson & Johnson?
I can speak to that. I think I've mentioned it probably my previous answers, is the credo. I encourage every one of you to go and look and read through it. We truly believe in what it's in the credo, and we use it as a guidance for our day-to-day work and decisions, whether they are easy or difficult. And I'm gonna tell you, we use it more when it's difficult decisions that we have to make. It's based on our credo. And everything goes from there. So you see the integrity of the people that works here and how customer centric we are, which is it's all coming from the credo. So not to say it's very fun to work in this company with all the coworkers that we have, and it's also because they are all screened based on the credo, as Alan was mentioning. So that would be my answer to you.
Thank you.
So in case if anyone else didn't want to add anything, I'm going to ask a question back to you, James. So what made you most excited about joining our event tonight with J&J?
What made me most excited was that the innovation of the company. I've always been a person who prides myself in using my engineering talents and my creativity to problem solve. And I just really like that it was centered around research and development. And not only that, but I felt a strong sense that J&J mission is to really help people and cater to the public. And that's what really stood out to me and made me want to join this event.
Awesome. Thanks for your question, and thanks for joining us. So
thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So the next hand I saw up was Misha Adams. So Misha, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself, and then go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Misha Adams. I'm a graduate from the Texas Southern University here in Houston, Texas. I got my degree in electrical engineering. I'm currently a teacher at a local high school in our Fort Bend ISD district. I teach aerospace engineering as well as introduction to engineering design to our freshmen, who are so wonderful and creative. My question was, and I put it in the chat as well, I wanted to know, is more so for Alan, do you all utilize any sort of 3D software for your products prior to putting them in the manufacturing process?
Oh, most certainly, yeah. The foundation we use here is a program called SolidWorks. It's been around for quite some time, very easy to pick up. I'd say for mechanical engineers, it's something that's on their screen every day. When I walk past their screen, it's either email or SolidWorks. So we use SolidWorks for everything from conception all the way to formal design reviews to, the drawings that we create. SolidWorks is everything for us in our company. So, I mean, I highly recommend, if there's opportunities for the kids in high school and so forth that want to go down this path, they really should somehow, maybe talk to the school or something if there's some, type of, technology class or some sort, but to get some student licenses and so forth, start young. It's really like, it's the backbone to everything.
I like to throw a question back at Misha. So what is it that you hope to get most out of this event with J&J? Oh, let me make sure you can unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Alan. We actually utilize, not sure if you've heard of it, we do Autodesk Inventor, Fusion 360, which is also by Autodesk. They're pretty much hand in hand with SolidWorks, but the students do, well, let me not say they do, but they have the opportunity to gain their certifications in that 3D software. So that's great. I'm glad we're on the right track with them. So for Mr. Moss, I was very excited, especially being from an HBCU. I didn't even know that this was a thing that companies did to reach out to diverse people of color and different backgrounds. I think this is awesome to bridge that gap, just to let our students know that there's opportunities for us at the higher level. So that was one of my main reasons for being here today. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah, awesome. I always like to make sure we are on point with the information that we're sharing and the opportunities with the different companies. So thank you, Misha, for joining us. Okay, so our next question, and the next hand I saw up was E. Rutledge. So let me ask you to unmute and allow you to ask your question.
Thank you very much, Will. And I just want to acknowledge, I really appreciate the event that you're putting together on so many occasions I've been to. I think this is my third one. They're all impressive. And I also want to thank the panel. I am just sitting here in awe of these incredible backgrounds that all of you bring to the table at Johnson & Johnson. And I'll admit, I am a visitor. I know in no way, shape, or form do I have AI or RPA skills in the least. I'm a director in IT. However, I'm the visitor that provides the support for all the technologies that you guys develop and make sure that the client experience with those technologies works as expected. So my question is, I guess, mainly for Jason and Brian. I'd like to know at Johnson & Johnson, what is career mobility like? And also, how open is Johnson & Johnson to recruiting people like me that, are not coming from a pure technology background, but have had a foot in it and may have some really transferable skills?
I don't mind taking the first stab at that. And thank you for the kind words, and thanks for coming tonight. I think one of the biggest things that we teach our recruiters here, and that has really been kind of foundational to the recruiting process here, is looking for capabilities, right? It's not easy to find in a resume, right? Or as you're looking through LinkedIn at profiles, but as you're finding people that meet those at least minimum requirements, right? And I'm sure Alan and Ryan can tell you, my recruiters are sticklers for the requirements, right? What are the must-haves, but where can we really be open-minded? Because if that funnel at the top of the recruiting process is so narrow, we're losing a lot of that diversity and inclusion, right? It's just a fact, right? You can't continuously, I call it the cookie cutter mindset, think the exact same way. The person that vacated that role, that's who replaces them, right? We can't continue to innovate if we think in that capacity. So we look for capabilities, how we can match things that you're doing, right? Like Alan may, go down a tangent on, an interview with someone that built an RC car by themselves, right? Just because that's who they are and that's their interest, right? So if you're very interested and focused in an area and you can show capabilities with the work that you've done to the work that you will do, that's how we as recruiters make that connection for those hiring managers as much as we can. And then you have open-minded individuals like the panelist here that can spot that as well and can bring that out of a candidate and match it too.
Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. So I see the next question is from Julius Haney. So Julius, I'm going to ask you to unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, fair enough. So I represent Virginia State University. And like the previous candidate, I didn't even know there was the HBCU Connect or other companies did it, but this is pretty awesome. I previously worked in aerospace and I'm a segment quality engineer. So basically I have two questions. What are the biggest challenges a person will face in the first 90 days? And how will success be measured? But then also, my question is the second question, and this is for anybody on the panel, reflecting on your own experience, what has Johnson & Johnson done to promote diversity, inclusion, and equity? So those are my two questions, and in no order, but yes.
Hey, Julius, this is Ryan. Thanks for the questions. Brian, sorry, did I cut you off, Ryan? No? Okay.
No, go ahead.
So I'll take a stab at the first one. So that question, and correct me if I got something wrong here, but it was, hey, if I start at J&J, what are the biggest challenges that I'm going to see in the first 90 days and how do we measure success? So I think that's going to be different from organization to organization. Each organization and each department has their own set of unique challenges that individuals need to overcome. I can speak from my perspective, what I see as challenges. So my particular team and the program that we work on is very much an R&D program, whereas Alan and Jessica are working on things that are somewhat R&D, as well as they have an existing product that they're working to support. So challenges are going to be different depending on where you operate. From my perspective, this thing is so complex that for a software engineer, it takes them 90 days just to understand where to even look in the code base to start doing something, right? And so I think it is really being able to navigate the problem set and the program that you're working on so that you can start to have those conversations and build that understanding about where you are. From my perspective, I'm not measuring people on their contributions in the first 90 days because that's silly. I'm measuring people on their interest, their engagement, and their willingness to learn about what's going on. And then we are, as an organization, mentoring those individuals to ensure their success in the future. So we're not just sitting you on an island and saying, hey, go figure it out. You have a buddy that you come in and they are supporting you throughout that time. They're helping to answer your questions very regularly. You have connects with them, whether it's a Zoom call on lunch or an in-person lunch, depending on where you are and what COVID looks like on that particular day. There's check-ins with your manager on a regular basis, who's not your buddy, by the way. We want to make sure that buddy is at a peer level rather than a direct report level. And so there are a couple initiatives that we have to make sure that you are not sitting alone on an island and that you can get engaged, that you can learn, that you can understand, because that's really what's going to set you up for success moving forward.
I think that.
Oh, sorry, well, I was just gonna say that's well said, Ryan. I mean, I've seen a ton of hires here, and I think the first 90 days is about laying the proper foundation for us to build on, right? And a lot of that comes with assigning that mentor, building your internal network, and making those strong connections with your team and even outside of your team, that cross-functional team that you'll need here. Getting connected to employee resource groups. It's about making you feel at home, right? And getting you, again, that foundation so solid that now we can build on it and we can focus on where you want to go in your future from there.
Yeah, and I just want to add in I have a lot to say, but I'll give, so the company answer initially about the DE&I and what we've been doing as J&J. So J&J as a whole is I know one of the big things that really sticks out for me is the commitment to increasing Black vice presidents and managers at our company by 50% by 2025. So that's, that makes the headlines, and my personal experience, just being here for, like I said, a number of years, we've always, I think, had a really good pulse in the DE&I space. This last year, and so just for, like I said, just personally, being put on our diversity engagement and delivery team knowing the work that we've done. And it's been a lot of work behind the scenes that, a lot of folks won't see, but I can talk about it because I literally just leaving the team now. But all the diversity conferences that we're brought in on and bringing business partners in, recruiters in, the buy-in, the money that's put out for these diversity conferences or diversity partnerships. I mean, we wouldn't be on this call right now if it wasn't for the work of our team and getting connected with HBCU Connect. Like I said, my direct boss was on this call and was the one that started this process. So other diversity partnerships that we're working on and some of the diversity sourcing efforts that we are working on. So kind of building this from like ground up to where it is now. And it's only going to move in the right direction here, moving forward. So it's been a lot of work this year. And I think I can look at this and say, we put our money where our mouth is, and so moving forward, I know there's a lot of really good things to come in the diversity engagement and delivery space. So you stay tuned. But I just know that this company over the last, almost 10 years has really, like I said, it's put its money up where its mouth is. So.
And to add on to that, Jason, one of the things that J&J has done is they have resources, they have opportunities, and they have goals around DE&I. And so for someone in my role and for all of my hiring managers, J&J has resources for us to understand how we can better attract quality talent across the spectrum, how we can retain existing talent, how we can ensure that we have an inclusive environment where everyone does feel welcome and does feel like family. And those are things that J&J asks us to think about and provides resources for us as hiring managers to really go out and do well. So there is actual commitment here to make DE&I a focus in the J&J landscape, particularly on that talent side.
So I'll add my 2 cents, but first I wanted to ask you, Julius, what did you want to get out of this event this evening here with J&J?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be a part of the opportunity and actually visit and visit and hear what J&J has to offer. Honestly, it's an exciting event. I was interested and intrigued on this opportunity, and so I figured I'd take the bull by the horns and be a part of it, actually.
Awesome.
So yes, sir.
Yeah, so I wanted to thank you, for attending, and also thank you for your question. But I always like to know and make sure we're doing our best to present you with what you're looking for as far as opportunities. So that kind of leads into what I'm going to do next is bring Brian back up to talk about next steps. But I also wanted to add, to that question about J&J and D&I, and why I was excited about this event is because I've been to plenty of conferences in the past in my role as a software engineer, going to NSBE conferences, or in the past as a graduate of an HBCU and computer science program, going to different conferences to check out opportunities, and then other conferences like National Sales Network I've been to, and there would be a huge presence by J&J, and I always assumed pharmaceutical sales and that type of opportunity, but the big thing related to DE&I was that J&J was always there, and so now the reason why I was excited about this event and sharing the opportunities that they have with you is that these are not your typical opportunities that you see in pharmaceutical sales. These are opportunities in engineering and technology. So that brings us to our next point, and I want to always make sure that you as candidates that have taken the time out to join us understand what your next steps are. So I'm going to pass it over to Brian to talk about next steps and what you would like to see from our candidates.
Yeah, and thanks again. And again, I appreciate everyone spending the last hour and a half almost with us. I hope you're as excited about these conversations as we've been, right? And I appreciate everyone's engagement. So next steps, and I know Jason and some of the other recruiters that have jumped in and out of the room have put it in the chat as well. Our homepage is careers.jnj.com. I will tell you, we have hired over 500 people this year. I was actually going to put in the chat, how many people do you think we've hired in robotics and digital solutions this year? It is over 500 people this year alone in 10 months. That is, again, the continuous commitment that we are making in that. And again, Ryan and Alan and Jessica know there are many more behind that, right, as we continue to build this out. So the opportunity only lies even larger in front of us. We will be partnering with HBCU Connect for everyone that took the time out. We will be looking at your backgrounds, your resumes. Feel free to connect to the panelists, to myself, to Jason. We will be putting in a pull-through strategy so that anyone that really is interested in joining Johnson & Johnson in robotics and digital solutions, we will provide you with that opportunity to see if we can make a fit for you and with you. This is what we're committed to. There's a reason why we built these relationships with Will and his company. I look at this as the first of many, right? In this continuous evolution between us and them, but for everyone here and what's for them, like let's evaluate your backgrounds and we'll find fits for you within J&J if you feel that it's the right home for you as well.
Awesome. So what I like to do is thank everyone, but to our candidates, I'm going to ask you all a favor. I always like to do this at the end of the events where I can, and that is if you like to turn on your video so I can get your smiling faces in a snapshot to remember this event. So I like to take a snapshot. So if everyone, all of our candidates, if you'd like to turn on your video, then I like to get a snapshot of your smiling faces. And while you all turn on your video feed, let me thank the J&J team for taking the time out to not only share your opportunities with the HBCU Connect audience, but also thank you for taking the time out to share your experiences and who you are and the teams that you work on and what you do at J&J. And to our candidates, we cannot do these events without you all, right? So I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know a lot of you, most of you are working professionals that have great careers, but you're curious about opportunities with J&J, and your time is precious. So I thank you for coming to our event and participating with us. So if you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and get this snapshot of your smiling faces. So if you want to go ahead and turn on those cameras and say cheese.
Hey, Raj, you have to take off the.
That's your favorite line in the red.
Because you always forget.
I'm on it, man. All right, so let me go ahead and put us into gallery view. If everyone likes to just go ahead and say cheese, we'll get this snapshot. All right, thank you. Okay, thanks everyone, and to the J&J team again, thanks for everything. To our candidates, make sure we have your latest resume. If you want to drop that resume over to us, just go to hbcuconnect.com/J&J. That will take you to the landing page where you can upload your latest resume and your latest contact information. We will then share your resumes with Brian and team on the J&J side so that they can share with the hiring managers to reach out to the folks on the list that may be a good fit for open opportunities. So thank you all again for coming. Thanks again to the J&J team. And we hope you had a great and informative event. We'll follow up by email with the video and next steps as well. So thanks, everyone.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank
Will.
you, guys.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Will.
Take care.